Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down, and you know what that means. It's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead. As always, I'm your host, Lena Nazari. You can go to lenanazari.com or find me on Instagram, The Beautiful Dead Podcast, if you would like to reach out to me or put comments under the video and just tell me what you would like me to cover. If that's all you want to tell me, by all means. Like I've said previously, that I am the person who responds. So if you have sent me something and I haven't responded, then it's probably lost somewhere. So go ahead and reach out to me again. I don't ask for this often, but please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. Just click subscribe, like the video, comment, share the video, because if you watched From Dusk Till Dawn 1, you will know that I have now 2 kids in college, so that would help. All right. So if you've been following with me for the last couple weeks, we did From Dusk Till Dawn 1, Dusk Till Dawn 2, Texas Blood Money. And so I'm like, let's just do it. Let's just finish it out. It's available to stream on Pluto TV. So let's watch From Dusk Till Dawn 3, The Hangman's Daughter. I had so much fun with last week's movie. I'm like, let's just keep watching, because right now, like, you've got me. You have me. Can you keep me? I don't know. We'll find out. So I had never seen this one before. It was another one that I think was direct to video. I think it was like 1999, I want to say. Not a lot of well-known people in this one, although there's a couple familiar faces I was surprised to see. And much like last week, I went into this, I did not look at anything. So I didn't look for vampire crossovers until after I watched the movie. Some big ones. Danny Trejo is back. He is the only person to be in all 3 movies, plus he's also in the TV show, so good for him. He is back, and of course he did that Vamp Father, which I promise I'm going to track down. He played himself in an episode of What We Do in the Shadows. Danny Trejo loves a vampire movie, so good for him. And then I knew as soon as she walked on screen who she was. Now, I didn't know her name, but I knew what the crossover was. So the lead female in this movie, her name is Araceli, I believe. And she, if for my Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans, in the very first season, do you remember Inca Mummy Girl? It's the one where the mummy comes to life and it's a beautiful Inca princess and Xander falls in love with her. That's her. That's her. So that's our vampire crossover for this one. So very exciting. And then there was another face that I recognized very quickly, and when we get there I will tell you who it is, but I was like, what? Why did she do this movie? I don't know. It was the 90s. It was a weird time, right? All right. If you have never watched this channel or listened to my podcast, massive spoiler alert, I'm going to ruin everything. We talk about it from beginning to end because that is how we break down the vampire lore in all of this and talk about the universe. So be forewarned. All right, let's talk about From Dusk Till Dawn 3, The Hangman's Daughter. We open with text, on-screen text, and it's explaining that at the end of his life, Civil War hero and author Ambrose Bierce disappeared into Mexico with the intention to join Pancho Villa's revolutionary forces and was never heard from again. So we know that this movie was set probably about 100 years ago, and we know that it is going to use a real historical figure. So I was like, okay, I'm interested. So we open on a man in a dusty town. All 3 of these movies, very dusty. I felt dusty by the end of watching all 3. I felt sandy. But he's looking around the village square, and we see missionaries are passing out pamphlets to the locals who are all gathered to witness a hanging. They're preparing for a hanging. The man is asking the local barkeep if Pancho Villa has come through their town because he has something valuable for him. The barkeep explains that Villa is likely in a town that is a day's ride away, and he encourages the man, who we find out is Ambrose Bierce, the guy from the text from the beginning, He encourages him to go join the stagecoach that is leaving town that day, and is actually headed to the town that Vio is probably in. So Ambrose approaches the stagecoach and says, I would also like to do this. I would also like to be in the stagecoach. And the two men who are running the stagecoach, who will drive it for them, and it's their coach, there is a man with no eyes and a man with no tongue. So he's like, I am his voice, he is my eyes. I'm like, oh my, okay. And then getting on the stagecoach is the missionary and his wife. His wife, BT Dubs, is Rebecca Gayheart. Like, if you remember her, all of the people who are my age, it's so funny because I just watched Hack the Movies talk about Urban Legend, and she was in that too, and I was like, that's weird to see her twice very quickly. But yeah, you guys will know her, trust me. If you remember the 90s, you have seen her face. So, back to the movie. Madrid is the man who is about to be hanged, and he is ushered out into the square by, the sound of the boos and cheers of the village town people. And in the front of the crowd is this beautiful woman. That's our girl, Inca Mummy Girl. She is clearly upset that this man is about to be hanged, but we don't know why. The masked hangman arrives, and he seems awfully happy about the fact that Madrid is about to be hanged. He rips the back of Madrid's shirt and starts whipping him with a cat of nine tails, but then he recognizes the woman in the front row. Her name is Esmeralda, we find out, and he says, what are you doing here? Go home. And she refuses, so he says, bring her up here. The officers grab her and take her up to the platform where they rip the back of her shirt, and we see that she has many scars from being whipped, obviously more than once. Madrid says, how can you whip your own daughter? Then the hangman starts to whip Esmeralda, to the horror of Ambrose, who is watching this whole thing happen. So this is where we get the hangman's daughter title. When he's done whipping his daughter, he demands she be taken away, and he puts the noose around Madrid's neck. So at this point in time, we see there's a young boy, and he's up on a tower, and he's preparing a rifle. He shoots just as the man hangs, and the bullet cuts the rope. Madrid runs into the crowd. He fights his way out, and we see that he has those boots that have the knives in them, the blades, that can retract and come out and retract, with a stomp of his boot, I guess. A bunch of men start firing at Madrid, but the boy with the rifle is also firing on them and is apparently a very good shot. And then this boy tosses a gun to Madrid. We see Madrid is a very quick shot and very accurate. And then he jumps on the back of a horse, and as Madrid is escaping the town, he sees Esmeralda and he scoops her up onto the horseback, and he flees the town, and then so does the boy. The hangman is shooting at them, and a man says, that's your daughter, you could kill her. And he pulls off his mask and says, I'd rather see her dead. And the hangman is like very scarred on his face, and I didn't know if that was going to come up or not, but I did clock that. I'm like, that's a lot of scarring. And he says, I'd rather see her dead. On the stagecoach, the missionary and his wife are talking about their plan to start a Bible college in this town they're headed to, which is called Tierra Negra, the town that they're headed to. I already said that. We find out that Ambrose is a staunch atheist, and he thinks the Bible is an assemblage of lies. It was actually very good monologue, and the missionary and his wife are just like horrified. Meanwhile, Madrid and Esmeralda arrive to this desert cave where they meet up with a man who was supposed to help Madrid. He's like, where were you? And the man explains that someone named Chada told him that Chada is the new jefe and not to help Madrid. So Madrid says, go get him. And the man runs. Esmeralda says she doesn't believe everything that was said about him, and he says, you should believe it. I only saved you to protect myself because I thought they wouldn't shoot at me, but I guess I was wrong. So now we're parting ways. But she has nowhere to go. She has no family. And we find out her mother died in childbirth, which might be why her dad hates her. So he agrees to take her to Tierra Negra, where he knows someone that will give her work. And she says, what kind of work? And he's like, the work that girls do. Oh my. A group of men now arrive into the cave, and the lead one starts to pull a gun, but Madrid is faster and shoots him in the forehead, and now we see all the rest of the men are back on his side, and they're calling him Jefe again. We see that the hangman and some officials are looking for Madrid and Esmeralda, and the hangman offers 100 pesos to anyone who brings her back alive. Now, the kid that saved Madrid shows up in his camp and asks to be Madrid's apprentice. Madrid flips off the hat, and we see that it's actually a girl, a young girl. And they all laugh, and she draws a gun and says, like, I'm the one that shot that noose off of you. We find out that her name is Reese, and just when they are about to shoot her, she explains that she overheard Ambrose talking about carrying something valuable, that he's headed to Tierra Negra and he's going to give it to Pancho Villa. So they all agree they're going to hit that stagecoach, and they're going to allow her to live unless it turns out she lied. And then they hit the stagecoach, and we see that the blind guy actually can shoot based on sound, which was pretty cool. A few of the highwaymen are wiped out, but so is the man with no eyes and the man with no tongue. So Ambrose, the minister, and his wife are on their own, and no one is driving the stagecoach. Thankfully, they get the stagecoach to a stop, and Madrid takes Ambrose's gun, and then they go through all the luggage, and they find a box of Bibles, but they don't find anything of value. So Madrid is pissed. He pulls a gun on Ambrose, and he says, you have something valuable for Villa. I want it. And Ambrose says, I am the valuable thing. I'm offering myself to him as a soldier in his army. So Madrid tells the men, this is an honorable man, leave him alone, and they all ride away and just abandon these three people in the desert. Madrid, Esmeralda, and Reese are riding through the desert when they come across a cemetery full of crosses. They stop, and Madrid says, this is Reese's first lesson, and he said, for you to fill others with fear, you need to feel it yourself. So he throws a noose up over one of the crosses and tells her to put the noose around her neck, and she does it. And then Madrid ties her hands behind her back, and she's balanced on top of a smaller cross below her. And he starts shooting at the cross that she's standing on. And Reese finally does admit that she is afraid, and she starts to cry, and all the men laugh at her, and then the cross falls, and Reese starts to hang. And I thought that he was going to save her, but he does not. And Esmeralda takes off on her horse, and Madrid follows her, and they just leave Reese there. Now, the minister is leading the horses on the stagecoach, but they get to a point that is unfortunately all desert, all sand, and the coach will not go over the sand. So they decide that they have to walk through the desert, and they come across what looks like this abandoned temple with torches. And obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, I will try and show it, but YouTube's been weird lately about what it'll let me share. But when I first saw it, the Spanish on the front, now he actually mistranslates it for the minister and his wife. He says it says like welcome weary souls or something like that. But if you translate the Spanish on the front of this stone building, it actually says the devil's nipple. So I was like, oh, it's the titty twister. It's going to get turned into the titty twister. So they enter it, and it's this like empty bar / tavern. Ambrose is looking around when suddenly a man appears behind the bar, and it's our boy Danny Trejo. He is back.
Estamos cerrados. We're closed.
And the minister and the wife ask for a room for the night. Madrid catches up to Esmeralda, and they share a kiss. Back at the bar, people start to arrive, so I guess it's still a working bar, even though it doesn't look like it's in good shape at all. Music plays, and a beautiful woman comes out of the shadows and approaches the minister and his wife, and she says, I am Kixla, and I will show you to your room. We're back at the cemetery where the men who are looking for Madrid find the hanging Reese, and they realize that she is still alive, so they cut her down. And he says, you have no idea what you've unleashed, and then they take her with them. Back at the bar, it is hoppin', and another American arrives. He's a hairbrush salesman and was lost in Mexico when he found the bar. As the minister and his wife are walked down the hallway to their room, we see that there is, and hear that there is adult activity happening in all of the other rooms. We find out that they've been married for a week and they have not done the deed yet. He tries to get it started, but they are interrupted by a bat, which he chases out of the room. And then she's like, I just want to go to bed. And he says he'll go get her some water. He can't help but peek into some of the rooms when Cakesla sees him, kisses him, and then leads him into an empty room. In another room, Madrid's men are celebrating with some of the women. Meanwhile, the cops who are looking for Madrid also arrive at the bar, just as the minister stumbles down into the bar with a very big smile on his face and orders a shot of tequila. So I guess he forgot all about his mission and all about his wife. Madrid and Esmeralda are the last to arrive to the bar. He mentions that he has ridden through this area a dozen times and he has never seen this bar. Esmeralda doesn't like it. She's getting like a really weird vibe and she doesn't want to go in, but he sends her in while he puts away the horses. She walks in and is greeted by Cakesla, who sees the scars on her back and says, "Who hurt you?" And then her eyes turn green and she licks the still bleeding wounds. And Cakesla says, "You are very special, Esmeralda." And she's like, "How do you know my name?" Now we see that Madrid is outside. He's looking for the guy that was supposed to take care of the horses, and he finds him in the barn feeding on the horse's neck. Madrid shoots him, which wakes up the minister's wife, who goes looking for her husband. In the hallway, she's grabbed by one of the highwaymen as Madrid comes into the bar looking for Esmeralda. The minister is very drunk and starts a bar fight when he sees one of the highwaymen who robbed him. Meanwhile, Cakesla is doing Esmeralda's hair in front of a mirror and she doesn't cast a reflection. Madrid finds her and says, "We are getting out of here," but Esmeralda wants to stay. It's almost like she's kind of under a trance, but we will get to that. Madrid shoots Cakesla in the head and then we see that she has green blood. In the bar, the fight has led to spilled blood, and we see some of the girls licking their lips. The minister stabs one of the men and starts to go after another one, the one who's actually holding his wife now. But the blood from the stabbed guy is too much, and the girls and Danny start to lick the bloody bar. Madrid runs in with Esmeralda and says to Danny, "Your friend ate my horse. I had to shoot him." And Danny's like, "Oh, you mean him?" And then we see the man from the barn is now here. He's alive and he is full vamp. And this vampire has like pronounced forehead and cheekbones, light blue eyes, and 2 sharp canines. The hangman and his posse come into the bar with Reese as the hangman called Esmeralda's name and then starts shooting. And then, in the twist that I knew was coming, if you guys didn't figure it out, maybe, if you watched it, you probably figured it out, but if you didn't, don't feel bad. I saw it coming.
Mauricio, it's been a long time. But I knew you'd come back. Stay away from me. The girl is beautiful. She doesn't really look like you. Stay away from me. But she looks a lot like me.
In the twist I knew was coming, Cakesla enters the bar, calls the hangman by name, and says, "It's been a long time. The girl doesn't look like you. She looks like me." She has 2 sharp canines on each side, so she has 4. She has yellow irises. He shoots her, but we know that doesn't matter. Danny has turned. He has 2 sharp canines and red irises. He pulls a lever that locks the front door, and all the girls start to turn and start eating the bar patrons. Some of them look more human. Some of them look very snake-like, so we're back into the same world of a bunch of different species of vampires. As everyone fights, the hangman uses a whip to decapitate a vampire, who then grows a cobra head and calls him by name. So these vampires know him. Danny calls him by name. The vampire with the cobra head calls him by name. And now the patrons are starting to turn. So the hairbrush salesman has vamped out and he approaches the minister's wife, and then they tango. You don't have to rewind it. I said tango. They tango. The whole thing turns into like a sepia tone, and at the end of the tango, he dips her and bites her while her husband screams. So at first I was like, is this a dream? But no, they tango, and then he bites her. Now the tango, the hangman knows to stake them and uses crosses. So obviously he's had experience with these vampires, if you didn't already figure it out. He ends up down into the basement, and there's a bunch of survivors down there, including Madrid, the minister, Ambrose, Reese, and Esmeralda. The vampires break down the door, so the humans have to escape into these like underground tunnels to go God knows where. Esmeralda falls, and then she feels something in her hair, and it's a bat on her back. And they realize that now all the vampires have turned to bats, and they use these like torches to try and fight the bats. Meanwhile, in the bar, Cakesla rises and says, "Where's my girl?" And then she coughs up some of Esmeralda's blood onto her tongue for the hairbrush salesman to lick off of her tongue. And he says,
She has her eye!
Wake the old one.
So we got some kind of prophecy here. Down in the tunnels, the torch-wielding survivors are trying to find their way out when the minister hears his wife calling his name. She steps out of the darkness and says, "How could you leave me up there? They hurt me." And then she vamps out. She has 2 long canines and red irises, and then she has like visible vasculature. He pulls a Bible and she spews pea soup on it, and then tentacles shoot out of her stomach. Which we've not seen a vampire do that yet, but I guess there's no rules in this world. And the tentacles are like snakes, and they wrap around him. Madrid slices them and machetes the wife in the chest, and then she bursts into green flames and dies. Madrid asks if anyone else has been bitten, and they all say no, but the reaction of one man tells us that is a lie. What did I say? If you've been bitten, don't hide it. That's selfish. They all continue down the tunnels, and Esmeralda comments that it's colder, and they think this means that night air is getting in from somewhere, so they must be close to the exit. But Madrid and the hangman argue about which way to go, so they split up. Guys, don't split up. In a horror movie situation, do not split up. We find out that Reese killed her entire family before she went on the run, so we know she's probably not going to make it. Group 2 has Madrid, Esmeralda, Minister, and the man who was bitten, who's all the way in the back of the crowd, and he starts to turn. And now he has fangs and all black eyes, which somehow the minister doesn't notice, and then the man just disappears. Then he shows back up and bites the minister before he's staked by Madrid, and the minister tells Madrid, "Please stake me before I turn," and Madrid does. That's a good friend. If you watched my Village of the Vampire episode, you know that I've told you guys, if your friend gets bit, stake them. Don't let them turn, just stake them. They meet back with group 1, and the vampires are screaming, "Give us the girl! Give us the girl!" And she asks the father, "Why do they want me?" Madrid and the hangman start to fight, which takes them like into this antechamber, or like worship room, but we're gonna call it the antechamber. And this is where the survivors now encounter all of the vampires. And some of the vampires are very human looking, but some of them look a lot like the bat-human hybrid in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Cakesla says, there's somebody I want you to meet, and they open a stone coffin to reveal a vampire who's covered in maggots. They lift up the coffin and the vampire steps out as Cakesla says, this is her grandmother.
Welcome to the darkness, Santanico Pandemonium!
So Esmeralda is Santanico Pandemonium from the first movie. This is her backstory that we're watching. Nice. Cakesla says, prepare the sacrifices for anointing. The vamps hang all the remaining humans upside down as we see Esmeralda all dressed up and next to her mother Cakesla on this dais. The grandmother predicted that Esmeralda would return to this place. As long as she stayed away, she would be human, but if she returned, she would become something else, and the grandmother predicted that she would return. The hangman says he tried to kill her as a child, but she kept coming back.
Should have killed her.
I tried. She was a child, but she kept coming back.
Oh my goodness. Madrid uses the knives in his boots to cut himself down and then cut the others free. They start killing vampires, but Reese is bit. Esmeralda cuts open the belly of her grandmother, which releases thousands of bats. The hairbrush salesman is staked. The hangman kills the grandmother. Esmeralda is now turned. All of her teeth are sharp, so she has like all sharp teeth, but then the canines are longer than the rest. Her eyes are red and yellow, and she bites her father. She turns back to looking human and tries to convince Madrid to stay. He opens the door, letting the sun in, and kills Cakesla, but the hangman is turned, and he backs up. Esmeralda backs up. Madrid and Ambrose run out. They're the only ones to make it, and Esmeralda screams, "Don't leave me, don't leave me," as the door closes. And then Madrid asks Ambrose, "Do you need company?" Exactly like Kate asked Seth.
Seth? Need some company?
Hey.
You need company?
At the end of the first movie, only this time they agree to stay together. So they ride off together and we get that same pullback shot showing us that this temple was in fact the building that will become the Titty Twister. So like a nice little kind of wrap up, a nice little bow on the top of the trilogy. Definitely a callback to the first one with that last line and last scene. And while I definitely foresaw Cakesla being Esmeralda's mother, I did not foresee that she was going to be Santanico Pandemonium. So I love that. I love it. All right. Let's talk about tropes I love and tropes I hate. We've talked about this. This is the third time talking about it now. I love a vampire-owned business. If you guys see, I'm wearing my Fangtasia shirt, another vampire-owned club. But I love the idea of like the vampires running business as a way to get victims or a way to sustain their existence. I just love that. And I love a fulfilled prophecy. This is such a cool idea to have Santanico be some kind of special prophesized one. You know, we knew when we watched the first one that she was some kind of special something. So it was pretty cool to see that she was like a fulfilled prophecy. And we've talked about this too. I love when a group of people who are from all different backgrounds have to come together to fight to survive. I especially love it when they start as enemies and then they have to work together to save themselves and get out. And you know, I love the whole like spilled blood makes the vampire lose control thing. Usually it's like they cut their finger, they slice their hand or something. But I love that whole trope of like the blood gets spilled and now the vampires can't keep it together. And I know you're sick of hearing it because this is the third time I've said it. I hate one bite is all it takes. Hate that. All right. How sexy or alluring are the vampires of From Dusk Till Dawn 3? So again, they will use sex to lure you in. Now, different from the first two, in this one we actually see the vampires having sex with the humans. So at least in this one, they'll actually give you a good time. You'll get that good time first, but then ultimately they are gonna kill you. So I don't think they necessarily are lusting and wanting sex. I think they're using it to get you vulnerable, and then they're gonna eat you. They are not more alluring because they're vampires. They are hot, topless women. So that's what brings everybody in. It has nothing to do with the fact that they are vampires, but because we actually see them like giving it up for the humans before they kill them, I'm gonna up their sexiness scores from the previous two, and these, they get a solid 5 out of 10, a mid of the road 5 out of 10, which good for you guys. So you're the highest rated in sexiness when it comes to the 3 Dusk Till Dawn movies. That being said, are you more scary and evil than the other Dusk Till Dawn vampires? Let's find out. So, much like the other ones, they are very organized. They get you out into the middle of nowhere. They spread very fast because it's one bite only. They slaughter rooms full of people and don't really seem to care about it. Now, they are bound by the sun and they can be killed by staking, decapitation, or fire, but they can shift into the bats like all the rest of them. But the one thing that makes them a little worse than the other two is that they are willing to hang humans upside down and bleed them for like a ritual. And that gives them this whole like blind obedience to a faith system that makes them extra scary because they are driven by something other than bloodlust. And so that makes them more scary and more dangerous than all the other ones. So just like they got a sexier score than the first 2 movies, they also will get a higher scariness and evil score. So the first 2 got 7 out of 10. I'm gonna give these guys an 8 out of 10 because of that whole faith system that they have. So congratulations, you guys. You got the highest ratings out of all 3 movies. Now, does that translate to it being the best of all 3 movies? Let's talk about my thoughts. Now, like I told you before, I never watched the sequels because I was so convinced that they were just gonna be horrible. But I'm going to admit here, recorded on mic, on camera, I was wrong, okay? Both 2 and 3 were so much more fun than I expected them to be. I will say this one is the weakest of the 3 when it comes to the plot. The plot had a really good idea. So the plot was, where did Santanico come from? That's a good question. That being said, I think it fell short. The whole subplot with Ambrose was totally pointless. I think they were probably trying to tie in a real historical figure to maybe make it more fun or more realistic, but it just really added nothing. I was so interested in the whole story of the hangman and the vampires. Like, how did he know them? How did he get away? Why was he with them? Why wasn't he turned? There was so much they could have explored and they just didn't. They didn't. So if they had replaced all the Ambrose stuff with all the hangman and the vampire stuff, I think it would have been so much more interesting. The girl that played Esmeralda was fabulous. The setting and the time period totally worked for me. I just think it fell a little bit short. That being said, if you haven't done it, watch all 3 movies, make a day out of it. They were so much fun. It's so enjoyable for what it is. I'm so glad I did this. Next week, we are going to return to the Hammer films and we are going to do Dracula Has Risen from the Grave from 1968. It is currently streaming on Prime for $3.99 if you don't have it on DVD, or you can just come back next week and just hear me talk about it. I hope that you guys are happy, you're healthy, that your life feels full. If you've made it all the way until the end, I don't know, what can we put down in the comments that will confuse people who didn't make it all the way to the end? Think of something really funny. Somebody start something really funny and then everybody else pick up on it. But if you haven't already, subscribe, like, share. It will help me out so much. And of course, I love you guys and I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening.